Shut the fuck up. You know what's gonna piss a lot of people off? I didn't even tell you what I'm gonna title this video.
What?
Vince McMahon is a genius. That could be, that could raise some eyebrows.
Yeah, they could lose us subscribers.
Like that could, I don't actually think I'm gonna name the video that, but I thought about it because even though, hear me
Oh,
out.
look at I got my Undisputed Era shirt on.
Yeah. Even though, hear me out. Vince McMahon is a lying rapist,
Sociopath.
sociopathic, narcissistic sack of shit. For what it's worth, when it comes to professional wrestling, he is a genius. In the beginning.
Yes.
But then you get to so watching this documentary, it didn't there was nothing in here that was scathing to me. It wasn't there's nothing new here, really.
Yeah.
People
I think the referee one for me was not the ring boy one. I knew about that, but the girl referee.
Yeah, I mean that's
I
different.
hadn't heard about that one.
Yeah, I think the post that he put out trying to soften the blow of this thing, and then trying to buy the Netflix thing, and then Bruce Pritchard saying how he thought this was a hit piece. I don't think it's that
Bruce Pritchard needs to get Vince McMahon's nuts out of his mouth, by the way.
really funny is that he is so heavily in that lawsuit.
Yes.
And then he did that interview where they brought him back and he was like, I thought it was fucking terrible. I thought that was a man attack. And then you didn't see him again because he was busy dealing with being alleged for rape.
Well, me and my brother were watching the first episode together, and the first 5 minutes was hilarious because he goes, "Oh, I got stories I can't tell you on camera."
Yeah.
Me and my brother both looked at each other like,
they go, what do you mean? And he was like, don't worry about it. I can't tell you. I'm not going to tell you those secrets. I was like, that fast, huh?
I was like, that's a good start. Great editing.
He is. It was interesting, hearing Vince talk.
There was a lot of points. We can go. Let's try and go episode by episode if we can.
Well, my problem is I don't remember how each episode was allocated. I remember
I could probably go through it.
One episode was really dedicated towards the family, the McMahon family. One episode was really dedicated towards Sean and the screw job and Owen. I did write down some notes as I was watching this documentary, and we can go episode by episode, but I just want to talk about what I wrote down here, point by point, very quickly. First thing I wrote down was Linda McMahon actually looks pretty good. Whenever she showed, I thought that she was gonna be ancient and decrepit.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think she has also skeletons that no one knows about.
And I'm actually surprised. I also wrote down here, surprised that we didn't hear more from her in the documentary.
I think there was a point to that.
Do you think she refused?
I think either she didn't want to, or Vince initially cut out a lot of her.
Are they married? I don't even think they're married.
They're married, but they it's basically open.
Well, for one,
he talks about the affairs, and she's like, "Yeah,
yeah." I mean, he was banging everybody but her. It seemed like. Point two. Vince is clearly a psychopath because of his upbringing.
Yeah.
Like,
that one was one I've heard about because of the Dark Side of the Ring on the beginning of Vince's childhood. On not on his childhood, but on how he creates WWF. But it is very weird that he like makes it a point too, like, I never talked to my dad about anything other than business.
Odd. Like, you can very clearly see that the shit that he had to deal with as a kid is the reason why his relationship with Shane is destroyed.
100%.
It's the reason why, like, I didn't know a lot about Vince McMahon pre him working for his dad. And I didn't really even know that much about Vince Sr. I just knew he was a guy. And I knew what he did for the most part.
I mean, the fact that he was like, on the last day, my dad finally told me he loved me. And I was like, dude.
Dark. And he knew his dad for like 40 years at this point. Like, didn't he say he met his dad when he was like 7 or something like that? Or was it
12?
12. 30 years.
Unreal.
I don't know. I think that's kind of wild.
It was dark. It was dark. And then everyone's like, well, no one really knows like the first 12 years other than him, you know, getting essayed and, you know, having and beaten. It's like
Vince clear. It's not an excuse.
No, it's just.
But it's like
you could tell it's why probably all this happens.
Yeah, you're like watching this and knowing what he's been alleged of. You're like, oh yeah, that checks out probably.
Yeah.
No mention of Nick Khan. Slightly surprising.
To me, not really, because he's not really involved in the story until later on.
True, but he does have, if I remember correctly, some hand, or he is mentioned a few times in this lawsuit.
He might be. To be honest, I haven't read it in a while.
It's been a while, but I think he had something like, it was something like he knew about what was going on or something like that.
Yeah.
I was not aware that so Vince leaves WWE after the allegations, comes back to sell the company, Stephanie McMahon resigns her role. I thought that was all like a pre-panned, she chose to step down to like willingly put him back in it. I was unaware that they are at odds. And that she
I had a feeling that they were during that time. I had a feeling they were during that time because of how it seemed to be like a domino effect.
To me, it always, whenever it was like she resigned, then, or it was like he came back and she resigned, I was like, okay, she resigned because he asked her to, so he can get back in that role.
No, I think she was like, fuck this, I've heard too much.
I didn't know that. I was unaware that they were at odds.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
There's a few things that I'm waiting to say, but like,
I wrote here, nothing real in particular. I just wrote Eric Bischoff is a moron.
I mean, yeah.
It's also followed by Bruce Pritchard yelling at Netflix, and then 2 days later, the suit comes in as absolutely hilarious. And then I wrote Bruce Pritchard is a moron. I wrote, no Jim Cornette in here is kind of insane, but having Dave Meltzer is awesome.
Oh, Dave Meltzer was pissing me off the whole thing.
I figured.
I was so pissed. My brother was like, who the fuck is that? I go, some guy that has a broken scale on how to rate matches.
What's funny is like,
I'm surprised he didn't mention Kenny Omega and Okada.
How do you not get Jim Cornette in here? If you have Dave Meltzer, I understand he like Jim worked with Vince. I don't know.
Because Jim Cornette would fucking would be like,
Hire them a new
fuck Vince
asshole.
McMahon. No, fuck Vince McMahon. But also fuck Vince Russo.
I will piss on his grave.
I will live long enough to piss on his grave.
I wrote interesting choice not having Taker talk more about the allegations. And then I wrote, after everything Vince McMahon has gotten out of, what are the chances these allegations actually stick? I
think they will.
As in, is Vince ever going to jail for this?
I don't think he'll go to jail because of how old he is, but I think he'll have to pay a large sum of money.
He's a billionaire. He didn't
Yeah,
care.
I know. I'm telling you, like a large enough to where it hurts him.
I wrote this because they asked if they think Vince will ever come back. I think he might.
No, I don't think he will.
I mean, this dude's had the federal government breathing down his neck for decades.
It doesn't matter now. Because I don't think it would be different if WWE had 51% control. They don't.
Yeah.
Endeavor does, and Endeavor wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if TKO gets to say so,
they wouldn't allow him to.
We'll see. And then the last thing I wrote here, because it's the question they kept asking at the end, what will Vince's legacy be? And I wrote what I thought Vince's legacy is. I wrote, the most important figure in the history of wrestling. Without Vince McMahon, wrestling would be dead or not what it is today. But because of who he is, who he continued to be, Vince McMahon, if he continued to stay in wrestling, once again, it would be dead. Wrestling needed Vince at one point, but now Vince needs to stay away.
I think that's probably perfect.
Meaning it was like, I don't know a good analogy for it, but it's like it needed him.
So I think a good analogy was he was like kind of like shaking a fucking snow globe. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, don't need it anymore. It's kind of been like whatever. And then it's passed down to someone else to shake the snow globe.
I think it's like I mean, who does that? Like, if he's not around in the beginning, it's not, who's going to take it that far?
No, it would have been, I mean, realistically, I don't think anyone would have.
Ted Turner, Eric Bischoff.
No.
And he was such a pivotal role, even in the Attitude Era. It was really like the last 10, 15 years where you can say, like, he needed to go.
Yeah, I mean, I have two main things that I've wanted to say, too. Okay? One was a surprise. And I guess because I'm always interested in the Chris Benoit case and also the CTE. But the fact that he, like, is one, like, WWE is one of the only organizations to fully open up about CTE stuff. And to be fair, like, Vince cleared his name through that.
Yeah.
Like, that was the first time where I was like, okay, it was just wrestling. Like, it wasn't like Vince was like, oh, here, you know, like, once Vince, the guy, whatever his name is again, that used to work for WWE wanted to investigate, he was like, dude, I'll help you with whatever.
But you know what's interesting about that is Vince doesn't believe in the concussion bullshit because when Taker got rocked.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and I thought that was what I was going to point out too, which was really weird.
That was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah. And
that doesn't follow at all. The only reason I can think of why he would say that is because if he goes, yeah, Chris had concussions or CTE or whatever, then it will paint back to, well, Chris has concussions and CTE and whatever because he wrestled for you.
Well, that, but also I could see it being that he was fully cooperating with the CTE thing, but he doesn't want to acknowledge that he made a bad decision with Taker.
Taker
losing the streak. Because how he said it was, I think Mark was in just a terrible place in his head because of the decision.
He was in shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah, no, he got dropped on his skull.
Yeah.
You don't go to the hospital because you're in shock from losing.
The other thing I was going to say, which I thought was a crazy quote that I'm surprised you didn't bring up, was the one where Paul Heyman goes, Shane and him and Vince were having an argument. He was like, take this knife.
Yeah.
If you want creative control, you'll have to kill me right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't bring that. I watched a couple of videos about the documentary and everybody brought that up. I didn't bring it up because it's like, which by the way, every time Heyman, I think I at one point had a note. Every time Heyman is on camera, it's like he's cutting a promo.
He is the greatest
ever. But I didn't really make a note of that because it's not surprising to me that he did that at all.
It's not surprising. It's just the fact that how it was set up in the documentary, you could see the steps where Shane was like,
yeah, Shane is, I mean,
and to be honest, I'll say this. I don't know if WWE would be good under Shane.
I don't know.
I don't think it would. And I'm glad Triple H is under it because I think he's the best thing going.
Yeah.
You know? But I will say this. He chased Shane out, okay? And also the whole UFC thing with Shane was crazy.
Yeah.
But also, to say this is that Shane thought he was going to be the heir, okay? Then he left in 2009, and then he was like, okay, I'm going to take a few years off. And then finally he was like, all right, I'll come back. And I really think like he was like thinking, this is it for Vince. And then he found out that motherfucker will not leave until he's forced to leave or he dies.
My theory is that at no point in time was this ever going to be a family heirloom. He was never going to give it to Triple H.
No.
It was that never, ever.
You want to know what I think would have happened, genuinely?
If he didn't get forced out?
What?
If he didn't get forced out?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think they would have been like, who's taking over? And like, all of a sudden you figured out that like the McMahon family, like under their hands, Vince had already sold it before he died. Right before he died.
Yeah, he would have held it to the very last moment.
Yeah, and he would have sold it without even telling them.
To anybody.
To anyone.
It doesn't, to the Saudis, to Disney, to fucking, it does not matter. He was never, ever going to give this away to be like a family traditional thing.
No.
This was always going to go to TKO. This was always going to go.
I think it probably would have went to Disney.
The only reason it went as fast as it did is because he realized that he tried to stay.
It was the quickest sinking ship you've ever seen.
Like, what's funny is he came back to sell it. It sold fast to TKO. Like, that was not a long, like, there were rumors of like him trying to find somebody to sell it, but he came back and it was like, boom, sold the TKO. And then it was like, I think he sold it to TKO because they were going to let him stay and have control. And then they were like, no, get the fuck out of here. But the best case scenario happened is that Stephanie's kind of business, Triple H is creative, Shawn has development, Vince McMahon is gone, and Nick Khan is...
And Shane's in AEW.
Do you think now, after watching this, I think it could happen. I think it could happen, and
I think you could too.
I think he seriously wants I think he seriously wants AEW. Like he wants to be in charge of it. He wanted the UFC so he could be in charge of the UFC. Why doesn't he have a job at WWE?
Because from what it sounds like, him and Triple H don't fuck with each other.
I think that's the case. And I think him and Stephanie would want to do it differently.
Yeah.
She's done a fantastic job. So it's, there's no reason to like. I don't. After watching this documentary, I didn't feel like at any point in time, I didn't feel like he was, what do you think? What?
I think if she ran it, it would be shitty.
She is running it.
She isn't. She isn't in the company.
At all?
Nope. That's what I was going to tell you when you said the business thing. She's not. She stepped down and she has never came back. The only appearances that she's made are when they say, "Oh, Stephanie McMahon is here," and they say Triple H's wife.
And she's in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Right. She did never come back. So it's just a Nick Khan thing right now. Wow. Maybe you're right. Well, she was running it whenever it did get significantly better, didn't it? Everything started to go a lot better whenever they both left, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Oh no. Sorry, Steph.
I'm not.
No,
Great wrestling's on right now, so
she was right to not be a part of it if Vince is a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
They both were.
Probably your only right decision.
Watching this documentary, do you what did you take away?
My main takeaway is that Vince should never touch anything again, including women, and and also that if it has to be acknowledged that if not for Vince, the business wouldn't be what it was, but the business is in a way better place without him, by far, and I genuinely think more people will go under the bus.
I just don't think it. I don't.
I do. I think Bruce Pritchard will go under the bus. I think there could be a good amount of people that go under the bus that aren't dead yet. If they aren't dead yet.
Oh, yeah.
Like the whole Pat Patterson thing.
You think he's guilty?
I've heard a lot of conflicting stories on that because he is openly gay. But I have heard that, like,
I've heard I've heard really good things about Pat Patterson.
I've heard good things in terms of help with wrestlers, but again, I wasn't there. I don't know.
I don't know a lot about Pat in the business side of things, despite like what he did. I didn't know about all these allegations until
I knew about it strictly because of like Dark Side of the Ring stuff.
I didn't know the main big story that I know about Pat was like the Rock story of how he got Rock in there, but that's a new story now. Obviously, Pat Patterson's before our time, so it's not like maybe he is guilty. I don't know.
Well, you know what's crazy is one of the Ring Boys was actually Randy Orton's uncle.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah, that wasn't said in the. I mean, I for obvious reasons it wasn't said, but it was talked about in Dark Side of the Ring.
That's.
I was about to say a crazy joke there, but we're going to keep that to ourselves until after this ends.
I'd be cautious. That's just me. I'm afraid that nobody's going down for this. And I'm afraid that the worst punishment. Oh yeah, forgot to say, Hulk Hogan is a
But
moron.
God, I hate him. I hate
Uh,
that motherfucker so much.
I was crying, fucking laughing, because I haven't seen the clip in so long where he choked out the
Oh, that guy. Yeah,
guy.
that's fucking funny. But also, everyone's like, we were trying to get a union together. You know, Jesse Ventura was trying to stir shit up backstage.
Snitched on him. Yeah, yeah.
It's
I
fucking crazy.
the choke out was like
That
the
was insane.
that's insane. I haven't seen that clip in years.
I
And
was dying laughing when they were going on about the Andre thing, and then I was thinking about all the lies that he was telling. And then they caught him in the lie where they're like, Andre's been beaten. And then they're like, Andre's also been slammed.
a lot.
And then I sent you that video today where it's like, he was saying that Andre the Giant was 600 pounds. Andre was barely 500.
500 soaking wet when he died.
He might have been 400, but he was 600.
They were crying, laughing whenever it was like, I wrestled 400 days a year.
Well, you got to think, going back and forth from Japan and the United States, it was about 400 days.
You guys ridiculous.
Or the one I did a Make-A-Wish for a kid at SummerSlam in the United Kingdom. He didn't even compete there.
Yeah, motherfucker is insane. Listen, the Vince thing, the best thing I can say is that Vince, for what it's worth, I guess was a genius. I don't know. In terms of wrestling,
yeah, he was. Not anymore.
it was. But he needed to go, and it's the best case scenario that he's gone. And he should never come back.
Yep.
And if he wasn't, like, I wish he goes to jail if these allegations are true. I don't think he will. I think that nobody's going to go down for this, and I think that he's just going to have legal troubles for 20 years, and that'll be it.
I think we should leave the audience with one question. Is this all kayfabe?
I can't imagine, but if it is, I think that this could circle around to like a Hulk, like a Stone Cold.
I think this has to do with the bloodline. Remember, it is only the 4th inning.
It should be the 9th and the bottom of it too.
It's only the 4th.
I hope not, because it's running dry.
Jacob Fatu has 9 kids. You knew that? You didn't know that?
He's got 9 kids?
Yeah.
The dude's like 24.
He's not 24.
Jacob Fatu?
He is not 24.
Is he in his 30s?
Yes.
I didn't know that. He looks young. Looks like a young man. He's got 9 kids. You think he moonsaults into... Never mind. Yeah, definitely, right? That's how you get 9 of them. It's like 3 a go at once.
All right.